Rules Committee will come to order. A quorum is present. So we are here today to adopt the policy that was just passed, the joint rules per Rule 85. I'd like to call upon Delegate from Fairfax, Delegate Simon, to explain the policy that was just passed.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, Rule 85 that we passed yesterday as part of our rules delegates to the Rules Committee the authority to adopt a policy to apply to those areas under the control of the House of Delegates. I think at the Speaker's recommendation, what we'll do for the initial period is to simply adopt an identical policy to the policy just adopted by the Joint Rules Committee, which covers all areas of the Capitol. Certainly under Rule 85, should we desire to, at a future rules meeting, we could adopt a firearms policy that was even more restrictive, or a weapons policy that was even more restrictive for our gallery and our floor and our chamber, because the rule that we have that authority under the House rules. But I don't think it's the desire of our body or our party at this point to do that. So we think that the policy that we just adopted for the entire General Assembly at the moment is sufficient. But for those of you that have a question, why do we even need to adopt a House policy when we, in fact, have just adopted this joint policy? The answer is that Rule 85 gives us the ability to go even beyond this should we desire to. Again, at the moment, we'll do what the entire General Assembly has done. And just to review for those of you that are not members of the Joint Committee, what that policy says, it recites the purpose, which is to ban the open and concealed carrying of weapons in offices and spaces. It applies, again, it applies to all areas of the Capitol, and so that therefore it would apply in this context under the color of Rule 85 to our House areas, which are the gallery, the floor, the chamber of the House, and those areas of the Pocahontas buildings that we control. The definitions, we include definitions for authorized security personnel and law enforcement officers that only apply to those security officers and law enforcement officers that are actually working in their duties, their on-duty status, and have the job of securing or enforcing law on our premises, not the fact that you just happen to be a law enforcement officer or military personnel. That won't give you an exemption to our policy either. We have a very broad definition of firearm, which includes handguns, pistols, revolvers, or really anything that's designed to propel a projectile or missile of any kind, including 3D printed guns and similar weapons. So to the extent, the open carrying of the firearms, again, it's not just concealed carrying, but open carrying of firearms is prohibited by this policy, and there will be signs posted. I think, again, the signs that are posted under the general policy will be sufficient to cover that. The enforcement mechanisms would be the same. The only penalty, essentially, for violating the policy is that you're subject to being removed from those areas of the General Assembly that are under your control. And we have a fairly broad latitude to Capitol Police to exclude other weapons that would be generally require either a concealed carry permit to carry or be prohibited altogether. Again, we are not in the business of setting up magnetometers and things to screen members as they move in and out of the chamber or in and out of the gallery and out of other places under our control. So the same policy would apply there as well, that you're not exempt from the policy, but at the same time, we're not about making you stand in line with the members and guests, with guests and members of the public to get to your seat, so you might miss a vote or not be able to sign in. So that is essentially what the policy does. Again, I think that the intent of the meeting here is to adopt this to the extent that it's applicable to our spaces, to make this the firearms policy contemplated under Rule 85 of the rules we adopted yesterday. And I would so move.
Simon, are there any questions before we get to Colonel Pike? If not, we can turn this over to Colonel Pike, if you would not mind coming up and sharing with us your thoughts on this policy.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Colonel.
I would like to start off to say that, and I'm going to just go back just a minute if you'll give me that little bit of latitude. Since 2010, when I started here with Capitol Police, a very honorable organization, rich with history, And what I've tried to instill with my folks and myself is that we remain a nonpartisan public safety agency here at the seat of government. And I've always tried to respect the leadership that's in place, tried to work with the tools and resources that we are given to ensure that those guidelines, the rules that are in place, that they are carried forward throughout this complex and these buildings. And again, in this scenario, when I was told that there would be a prohibition on firearms in these buildings, I was asked how would I and how would my staff handle that prohibition? How would we work with these facilities, these buildings, to implement that? And I've worked with the incoming leadership to do that, to try to put the best procedures in place so that we can do that. And again, my initial recommendation when this came out was to have all persons entering these buildings go through the screening and work again with the leadership to where the policy is before you today. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Delegate Cox.
Colonel Pike, I think there's a little bit of confusion on this side. You said, when I was told, and I sat through joint rules, I thought you said the same thing. And then, of course, you then, I think, said I did my best to put it in place. I think it was clearly implied that this was your idea and this was your recommendation. So was this your idea and your recommendation, or was this something that you were told and then asked to implement?
I was told that there was going to be a prohibition on firearms and to put together my recommendations on how to handle that prohibition for the buildings. Yes, sir.
Colonel Pike, first of all, thank you for what you and your team do every single day to keep us all safe. We know that is your number one goal, and you do a great job at that, and thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We appreciate your efforts to put this to work with us, and we also appreciate your following your recommendation as to how we can best keep everybody safe, all of the members and all of our guests. And towards that end, and that is our goal. That is our goal. That is your goal.
Yes, ma'am.
And we will continue to work with you and follow your lead, and also take your advice anywhere possible.
Madam
Thank
Speaker.
you for being here.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Delegate Austin.
I have a question for Colonel Pike, please.
Yes, Delegate
Colonel
Austin.
Pike, I may be confused, but earlier I thought when Senator McDougal asked you, would you remove someone from committee or from the floor if it was identified that they had a weapon in their possession or on their body? And I think you said no, you would not.
Yes, sir.
So I'm confused. Does that mean you're not going to enforce the policy?
I look at the immunity statute that's in place for members while the legislature is underway.
Yes, sir.
This is a building rule. I don't believe that I have the authority to enter those chambers and do what you described, and that's therefore my answer. Best of my ability, sir.
Yes, sir, and
My
thank you for
understanding.
what you do for us.
Yes, sir.
And your department. You'll do a great job for us, and we very much appreciate the safety you provide us while we're here. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Madam Speaker, I apologize. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Delegate Austin. Yes, Delegate Knight.
Colonel, I got a question for you because I don't know the answer, so it's not a gotcha moment or something.
Yes.
If you don't know, just let me know. But we have sworn officers that have jurisdiction, I believe, over the entire state. And it says in here that the law enforcement officer would be a law enforcement officer under the definition that has jurisdiction over the state and everything, but then it has a carve-out in here, only one that is working on these specific grounds. So would this particular rule that we've got in here under a definition, if a sheriff that is a sworn officer, I believe, for the entire state comes in here, which law is correct?
So the intent, I believe, sir, is that it's a full-time law enforcement officer, full-time deputy sheriff on duty with a proper identification here at the legislature. That is, in my opinion, the intent of that.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Delegate Knight.
I understand. I'm still a little bit confused.
Yes,
And I
sir.
don't mean to try to,
Yes, sir.
do anything. I just, because I don't know. But, if someone has got the whole state as their jurisdiction, and it says that, I assume, in code, if this particular carve-out says this, the officer may be conflicted on which one takes precedence.
And that is specifically for these buildings, that carve-out. So that goes back to where we, working with the leadership, need to make sure we effectively communicate this out to all those that will be coming to the seat of government.
Delegate Simon.
Madam Chairman, I said one quick question for Colonel Pike. So if I understood your response to Delegate Cox earlier correctly, your recommendation, as far as because I said I was one of the ones that said it, when I say that this policy is the recommendation of Colonel Pike and the Capitol Police, this is the policy that you think we need to have a gun-free workspace here. You didn't make the recommendation that we make the space gun-free, but if we're going to do it, this is the right way to do it.
Correct, sir. If we were going to do it, that's what I recommended, the measures to be put in place to do it.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair?
Delegate Gilbert.
Is it request to speak?
Point of information. What is our procedural posture right now? Are we just discussing this?
We're debating
Then
resolution,
speaking
yeah,
to
the policy right now.
policy, Madam Chair.
Delegate Gilbert.
I appreciate Delegate Simon clarifying that after he had a chance to be questioned by the media about the repeated assertions in the Joint Rules Committee that we just had that this all emanated from the Capitol Police. And I've heard a couple of different versions now, so I wait to hear which one is accurate. But it appears to me that what we just witnessed was folks on the Joint Rules Committee attempting to put all of this, very unfortunately, on the Capitol Police, and that is not a burden that they should have had to bear, nor it should be a position in which they find themselves having to choose to answer questions about assertions that were made that involve their authority and their honor, and having to stand up there and be truthful to the members of this committee now. And I just think that entire effort to put this on the Capitol Police was disgusting.
Madam
Delegate
Chairman.
Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will respond to the comments that have just been made. As I heard it, I would commend Colonel Pike for the way in which he first stated that he respects the leadership of this body and its long traditions of respecting that leadership. And once the policy was indicated that we are concerned about the safety issues, about weapons, then what we really value and what I have heard and what I am reading here is if it's going to be done, it needs to be done in the most responsible way. And I really admire all that he has done to indicate to us that for him to do his job and what the leadership of the Commonwealth as carrying out the election that we have just gone through. If he's going to carry out his job, here are all the provisions, here is the law enforcement protocol, here is the staffing issues, here is what you need to do so that you're not just speaking something, but you're being responsible in the way it's carried out. If I may follow up on the concerns expressed by Delegate Knight. On lines 86 and 87, it reads, "This prohibition does not apply to law enforcement officers, authorized security personnel, or military personnel as defined herein," which is why there was that definition of law enforcement officers. And may I also say in conclusion that in citing this language, I have not seen this before sitting down as a member of Rules Committee. It is something that is very transparent, able to be seen as to what the responsible policy would be as it has been worked through with law enforcement and trying to, as they have protected our safety all of these decades, anticipated issues that needed to be addressed.
Thank you very much, Colonel Pike. And again, as I said, we can't thank you enough for what you do every day. And for the rest of this committee, just so you all know, and I made this clear, we have been in touch and working with Colonel Pike every single day about this, and we respect your advice and suggestions. We'll continue to work with you to ensure that everybody is safe, all members and all guests, all the time. Thank you so much, Colonel.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Mullen?
Madam Chair, I would at this time move adoption of the rules.
Second.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Delegate Cox?
Madam Chair, a question for you. Let's be honest with each other, okay? Because I sat there in joint rules and listened very carefully. Colonel Pike twice said I was told, and you guys heard that. This is a question for you, Madam Chair. You then deliberately said afterwards it was Colonel Pike's idea. And so I think you need to let us know where this originated from. And it's on tape. I mean, everyone was here, and the reporters obviously took it down. And that was a deliberate misrepresentation. There's just no way around that. So maybe you can explain what you said and what he said, because he was very clear
Delegate,
both times.
I believe there's a motion and a second.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Delegate Gilbert?
speaking to the motion.
Yes, Delegate Gilbert? You have
Yeah,
the
and
floor.
earlier, Madam Chair, the issue was how swiftly we were proceeding with this policy. We've been trying to figure out which law enforcement officers this is going to catch unaware. And I think Delegate Knight had a perfectly good point, but it occurs to me if let's say if you're a sheriff, the sheriffs come for lobby day every year. They come in uniform. They want to be seen. Those sheriffs may not be on duty. They're lobbying, right? But they're in their uniform, and the protocols of that department, I'm quite certain, demand, if not the law demands, but I'm quite certain that at least the protocols of that department demand that if they are in uniform wearing their badge of authority, that they have to have their sidearm with them to carry out their duties if necessary. So I am suggesting to you, Madam Chair, that we have, in our haste, we are going to basically put the sheriffs of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the elected representatives of their people in their respective jurisdictions, in violation of this policy, or having to decide if they are going to be in violation of their own internal departmental policies regarding being armed while in uniform.
Delegate Mullen?
Madam Chair, I would just respond to the delegate that first, as he and all of the attorneys here on this committee are well aware, that this is a common practice that happens for law enforcement who enter into a courtroom in any court anywhere here in the Commonwealth. And to complain about the haste of this, I've noticed complaints by the delegate from Shenandoah over the last 48 hours that we haven't been doing anything. And now in the last 20 minutes, there's a complaint that we're doing too much.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Sickles?
I withdraw my comment.
Madam Chair,
Delegate Gilbert?
would Delegate Mullen yield for a question?
Will the delegate
I
yield?
will yield.
He will yield.
Does the delegate know how this definition of a law enforcement officer may differ from that which is contained in the code and that upon which we otherwise rely in said courts of law? And I'm not sure what the gentleman means by the policies of entering a courtroom. I know that varies from place to place. But does he know how our definition that we've carved out of a law enforcement officer differs from the statutory definition and its implications?
Madam Chair, I would say to the delegate that first, that this definition is inclusive only of those law enforcement officers who are currently part of their active duty in being present in the Commonwealth. You can see that on lines 57 and 58 of these rules, and I think the term active duty is well defined within code as well.
Delegate Sullivan?
Second.
Yeah. Okay. The clerk will move the pending question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Motion carries. Okay. Motion is now, the motion to, Okay, motion now is on the adoption of the policy, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Delegate Mullen. Aye. Delegate Watts. Aye. Delegate Ward. Aye. Delegate Sickles. Aye. Delegate McQuinn. Aye. Delegate Herring. Aye. Delegate Carr.
Aye.
Delegate Torian. Aye. Delegate Lopez. Delegate Simon.
Aye.
Delegate Sullivan.
Aye.
Delegate Bagby. Aye. Delegate Cox. No. Delegate Kilgore. No. Delegate Gilbert. No. Delegate Knight. No. Delegate Austin. No. Madam Speaker.
Aye.
Motion carries, ayes 12, nays 5.
Madam Speaker, I have a motion.
Delegate Mullen.
Madam Speaker, I move that we do now adjourn.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries, meeting adjourned. Thank you.